The colonists used a different type of battle tactic. When fighting against the colonists, the British Army generals expected the Continental Army or militiamen to use traditional battle tactics. Traditional battle tactics had the two opposing armies line up opposite each other in long lines, like you can see in this picture. Usually, they would be in an open field and they would face each other. Once both lines were in place, the two sides would start shooting. During many battles of the Revolutionary War, the colonists did not use traditional battle tactics. The colonial soldiers did not use traditional battle tactics because they were not trained to use them. Instead, the colonists relied upon their hunting backgrounds to develop another battle strategy or tactic. The colonists used a battle tactic that would become known as wilderness fighting or hit-and-run tactics. In wilderness fighting or hit-and-run tactics, colonists would hide or sneak up on the enemy, shoot, and then disappear into the forests or countryside. For example, the colonists stayed hidden behind log walls on Breed's Hill until the British were right in front of them. Then they fired. The colonists also hid behind trees, houses, and fences and fired at the British soldiers going back to Boston from Lexington and Concord. In both examples, the colonists never lined up and used traditional battle tactics like the British Army generals expected. You already know the effect the colonists' battle strategy had against the British Army on their march back to Boston from Lexington and Concord, and the British attack on Breed's Hill. The British Army suffered many casualties as a result of that colonial battle strategy. The hit-and-run or wilderness fighting tactic was one of the most effective battle tactics the colonists used throughout the Revolutionary War. Some important people from the Revolutionary War. Although there are many important people who helped the 13 colonies gain independence from Britain, 4 people are often talked about concerning that time period. Those people are Paul Revere, John Hancock, Benedict Arnold, and George Washington. You've already read about Paul Revere and George Washington. John Hancock's name was also mentioned in this chapter, but let's talk a little bit more about him. John Hancock was one of the richest colonists in New England. He was a merchant and trader who also owned many ships. He inherited his money and the shipping business from his adopted father. Not only was he rich and able to help fund the radical cause because of his wealth, but he was also very well educated, and he was able to help him gain power as a leader. Remember, he was elected president of the Second Continental Congress. You read that British General Gage considered John Hancock dangerous enough to order his arrest when the British Army went to Lexington and Concord. He was a very powerful man. Our last person that we need to know about is Benedict Arnold. Benedict Arnold's name has a synonym. The synonym is treason. But that was not always true. See, before going over to the British side, Benedict Arnold was one of the best colonial military leaders. Arnold learned soldiering at a young age. At 14, he ran away from his New England home to fight in the French and Indian War. In a move that would foretell later actions, Arnold grew to dislike being a soldier in the French and Indian War, so he deserted. That means that he left the army without permission and ran away. Then, during the Revolutionary War, Benedict Arnold commanded militia and Continental Army troops. He did that from 1775 to 1779. His troops helped win many battles for the 13 colonies. You'll read more about those battles later on. Arnold became a traitor to the 13 colonies when he started spying for the British in 1779. He gave a British general military information about Continental Army troops' movements, where they were going, and the number of those forces in exchange for money. In 1780, Arnold joined the British side after his treason was discovered. After the Revolutionary War, Benedict Arnold lived an unhappy life in Britain. He was unpopular and not trusted by many people in Britain. Let's review. 4 Americans contributed to the Revolutionary War. Paul Revere was one of the messengers who warned Lexington that the British were coming. Here's a picture of Paul Revere. John Hancock was a wealthy New Englander who helped fund the radical cause and was president of the Second Continental Congress. This is a picture of John Hancock. Benedict Arnold was the military leader who turned traitor. Here's a picture of Benedict Arnold. And George Washington was commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. This is a picture of George Washington.